Good morning and welcome to our official page, that is EGRA S.S.B College, Department of Commerce. I, Sunil Kumar Yadav, Assistant Professor and Head, Department of Commerce, Nodal Officer, B.VOC, EGRA S.S.B College. Welcome everyone in this 2 days international webinar on survival strategies for COVID-19 crisis in India in respect of economy, finance and education. It is a moment of great privilege and honor for me to extend a hearty welcome to Chief Patron Dr. Deepak Kumar Tamili, Principal EGRA S.S.B College, and our resource person. Today is the first day of webinar and we have with some important dignitaries, very eminent dignitaries from India.
Good morning, sir. Principal sir, Dev sir, Kaushik da, আর সুনীল কে সবাইকে গুড মর্নিং আমি আগেই জানিয়ে দিলাম।
Today is the first day of webinar and we have with us some important dignitaries from India and abroad who will act as resource person in our webinar and deliver their valuable lecture during the session. So today we have with us Dr. Santosh Kumar Dev, Associate Professor, Department of Tourism and Hospitality Management, everybody. University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. Next we have with us Dr. Devashish Sur, Professor, Department of Commerce, the University of Bardhaman, India. Next we have with us Mr. Kaushik Chatterjee, Assistant Professor and Professor in charge, Department of Business Law, Xavier College, Kolkata, India. It gives me a great pleasure to extend to you all a hearty welcome and warm welcome on behalf of EGRA S.S.B College, and I'm also delighted to welcome all academicians, research scholars, and our other viewers and participants in this 2 day international webinar on survival strategies for COVID-19 crisis in India in respect of economy, finance, and education. Before moving into the actual session, I just want to give a little bit brief idea about the objective of this webinar. COVID-19 outbreak has not only infected millions of people, but also led to the thousands of deaths, has given rise to the financial volatility, paused global economic activity, crashed stock market, distorted the overall education system of throughout the world, and caused a state of uncertainty globally. Moreover, several industries like entertainment, real estate, retail sector, all sector has been equally hampered due to this pandemic outbreak. As we all are getting regular updates about the number of people are being affected day by day due to this deadly virus, so I'm not going to discuss those numbers in detail. Perhaps most of you know that a few days ago we organized a state level webinar to create an awareness about the various problems and impact that has been created by this pandemic in various sectors of Indian economy and some of its revitalization measure. Now the main objective behind organizing this webinar, international webinar, to discuss the problem that other countries are facing and what are the survival measures that are being adopted by them to tackle this situation. So with this I'm concluding. Thank you very much. Now I request our Chief Patron Dr. Deepak Kumar Tamili, Principal EGRA S.S.B College, to deliver his inaugural speech. Please, sir.
Webinar seminar organized by Department of Commerce and B.VOC Software Development. Today in this seminar, I again congratulate all academicians or researchers, students, dignitaries, and other persons attending this seminar. I express my regards and thanks to Dr. Santosh Dev, Dhaka University, Dr. Devashish Sur, Bardhaman University, and Professor Kaushik Chatterjee, St. Xavier's College, as a resource person in this seminar. I again thanks to our department, Dr. Sunil Yadav, and other associate professor of my commerce department and other colleagues also. As you all know, the COVID-19 outbreak has infected millions of people. At present, more than 76 lakhs people all over the world are infected. More than 4.28 lakhs in today's record, 2.5 lakhs already died in this pandemic disease. And non-communicable disease, actually in diabetic patient, cancer patient, heart patient, asthmatic patient are more fatal and dangerous, and they are more infected by this pandemic disease. Actually, world record, that record published in the different journal, more than 41% patients on diabetic patient are died, 30% are cancerous patient, and other record from different levels. This outbreak, actually financial volatility, crashed stock market, crashed economic activity, and lastly, I think our educational environment is totally disrupted. In India, our MHRD and UGC has initiated several steps introducing online studies, and that online studies is only those who are innovating in rural areas and in remote areas are not taking these online studies due to their non-availability of smartphone and not connected with the net. I think this practice is deprived by major students, and in financial stability are totally disrupted in India, not only in India, in USA and other countries also. More than 185 countries are infected by this disease, and more than 95 schools, colleges and university at present are closing. And 1.42 billion students are closing their education at present. Our government has not taken any initiative when our examination, university or board examination, will accurate date are not publishing. Even academic sessions are delayed due to this pandemic disease. I think this situation will normalize again, and our economic activity again strengthen their position and financial stability again come. I think this terrible and turmoil situation will come to an end and again fetch a new light, new era in viable economy and business. Today, our speaker, our resource person will deliver their lecture, and we are all enriched by their speech. I again thanks to everybody, and I expect our seminar will grant success. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Principal Sir, for your valuable speech. So you all got your program schedule, and as per the schedule, our whole session will. Today, our first speaker, we have with us Dr. Santosh Kumar Dev. So before starting, I would like to give a little bit detail about Mr. Santosh Kumar Dev. Dr. Santosh Kumar Dev is Associate Professor of Tourism and Hospitality Management at Faculty of Business Study, the University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. He obtained his BBA and MBA degree in marketing from University of Dhaka. He also completed executive program in strategic digital marketing from University of Cambridge. Dr. Dev is very renowned teacher in the field of tourism and hospitality management and has more than 12 years of teaching experience at undergraduate and postgraduate level. He has published many research papers in national and international journals. He has 4 books in his credit. He associated with several academic journals, has attended several conferences and seminars held in India and abroad. His area of interest is tourism marketing, branding, e-tourism, and communication skill development. So once again, I welcome Dr. Santosh Kumar Dev. And sir, over to you, sir. Please deliver your lecture, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sunil Kumar Jadhav. And at first, I want to give the special thanks to the principal, B.VOC Tamili. And today's the discussion channel. There are very renowned professor in India, Professor Dr. Devashish here present, and today's the panelist plenary session. And here will be the another professor, renowned professor from India, the Kaushik Chatterjee. I want to give the special thanks to invite me as a resource person of today's session. Basically, if you are just going to think about the SARS and March epidemic, both have a very adverse impact in the global economy. But right now, we are just going to facing the COVID-19 pandemic, which one have a very huge negative impact to the economy of the nation, and not only the economy of the country, in a global economy, global educational system, and global social system, and human psychology and health. So right now and today, in case of our financial sector are facing a very adverse and negative few phenomena because of COVID-19. So I want to focus on today the tourism sector, how it is faces the COVID-19 pandemic impact, and how we are just going to recover the today's COVID-19 pandemic tourism sectors. So I want to show here the first one video, please.
Yes, sir. Santosh sir.
Now I'm just going to focus on impact of COVID-19 pandemic on tourism. But if we are just going to consider in the global economy that is going to representing the coronavirus situation in the world. But the 2001, the September 11, the terrorist attack also has adverse impact on the world tourism. And at a time, the time is going to consider 2003, the SARS outbreak. And SARS outbreak also have a negative impact to the tourism in a global economy. But today is the time that is going to representing here. That is also going to consider the 2015, the MERS outbreak also have a negative impact to the global tourism and hospitality and travel industry. But today, I'm just going to talking about the COVID-19 impact on the tourism. But before going to show here the COVID-19 impact on tourism, at first I want to focus on the contribution of the tourism to implement the Sustainable Development Goal. The journey is going to representing 2030, the vision of Sustainable Development Goal. But if you're just going to consider the Sustainable Development Goal, the tourism have Sustainable Development Goal have 17 goals and 105 objectives. And tourism is just going to consider one of the very key factor to the implement of Sustainable Development Goal. Out of 17 Sustainable Development Goal, the 4 is directly related to the tourism sector. But now the time is 2019, the travel and tourism direct and indirect or induced impact is counted for the global economy. In global economy, the tourist was 1.56 billion in 2019. But if you consider that 1950, that was a 25 million only. But in 2019, the GDP contribution of the global economy, that is USD 8.9 trillion from the tourism and travel sector. If we consider in 1950, that was only 2 billion. But in 2019, the GDP contribution of global economy, tourism was the 10.3%. That is one of the very significant amount contribution to the global GDP. 330 million jobs and 1 in 10 jobs around the world is opportunity in tourism sector. But if you just consider the last 5 years scenario, in last 5 years, 1 in 4 jobs is created in tourism industry. So in case of the job creation process, the tourism has a very huge contribution to the economic development and to reduce the unemployment. But the US dollar 1.7 trillion visitor export and US dollar that is 948 billion capital investment. Now we are just going to show here there is the impact of COVID-19. The COVID-19 already started from the December. But in January, the figure shows that there is the number of the tourist arrival is a minus figure is starting, and in January there is the 9%, 9% minus, and in the March there is the 57% of the tourists they don't feel comfort to traveling in different destination. But we are just going to show here the three in a graph, the three color that is the green and yellow. The green color in June is going to representing there is number 158% of the tourist is reduced in the global tourist scenario, and in December we are just the UNWTO they just predict that if such an pandemic is ongoing, so the total number of the tourists from globally it might be reduced to 78%. But UNWTO, that is United Nations World Tourism Organization, they just estimated that in Q1 from January to March, the 22nd% of the international tourism is decreases, and it may decline 60 to 80% over the whole year. 67 million fewer international tourists up to March translated into $80 billion in lost export. International tourism 2020 scenarios, the prospect of this year have been downgraded several times since the outbreak, and uncertainty continues to dominate. The current scenario pointed to possible decline in arrival of 58% to 78% of the year. The scenario 1 is going to representing 58%. The international tourist and international border is already closed, so easing the traveling restriction in early July of 2019. And scenario 2 is going to representing if the COVID-19 pandemic is ongoing for the long time, the 70% of international tourists may be decreased. And scenario 3 is going to representing in December up to if the total number of international tourists may be decreased, the 78% if the pandemic is ongoing for the long time. Under this scenario, the impact of the loss of demand in international travel could translate it into the loss of 850 million to 1.1 billion international tourists. And the report from the WTTC, it has shown that in 2019, the total number of international tourists was 1.56 billion. And the loss of the USD 910 billion to 1.2 trillion in export revenues from tourism. But according to the UNWTO, in 2019, the total number of GDP contribution from tourism sector, that was 2.9 trillion USD. 100 to 120 million direct tourism job at risk, and 2019 is going to consider, and according to the data of WTTC, 330 million people are engaged in this tourism sector, and out of 10, 1 people a job opportunity is created in tourism. But there is a very far by the worst crisis in international tourism has faces seen a record begin the 1950. The impact will be felt to varying the degree and the different global region at overlapping times, with the Asia and Pacific expected to rebound the fast. Now we are going to show here there is one of the comparative analysis between the COVID-19 impact on tourism and travel industry, a comparative scenario of Bangladesh and India. In India, the branding strategy is incredible India, but Bangladesh, they are going to follow the tourism branding strategy is beautiful Bangladesh. In India, GDP contribution is 9.2%, according to the WTTC report on 2018. But in current Bangladesh, the GDP contribution from the tourism sector is 4.4%. And in India, there is considered, according to the report of 2018 and 19, the over 87 million people are employed in tourism industry. But in Bangladesh, 18.58 lakh jobs is created in tourism industry. That is the 2.9% of the total job. In India, there is going to consider the 38 million jobs is risks at that time because of COVID-19 pandemic. And estimated loss in Bangladesh, Tour Operator Association of Bangladesh estimated that 5,700 crore taka, they are estimating the risks. And Pacific Asia Travel Association Bangladesh chapter, they also estimated that 9,705 crore taka may be the estimated loss due to COVID-19. And in Bangladesh also estimated the job risks in 3,05,000 people because of COVID-19. And out of these, the tourism sector has a very big contribution to the employment opportunity in Indian overall perspective. That is 12.75% of the employment, and 5.56% directly from the tourism sector, and indirectly they are just created the job opportunities 7.19% for all the workforces in India. Now we are just going to show here some recovery statuses. But if you are just going to consider the recovery status today during the time of COVID-19, UNWTO and WTTC and others organizations, they have also suggested to the students to stay home. So the recovery status may be stay home today and travel tomorrow. So travel tomorrow is a very interesting thing. This will create the very innovative ideas, and that will stimulate the tourists that will travel our future. But now I'm just going to show here some recovery strategy. The first one, recovery strategy, is related to the financial and political support for recovery measurement to the tourism sector. But in case of the recovery strategy, at the first time, every country, the tourism industry, or every nation, they have to be focused on urban tourism to ensure the continuous development of tourism sector. And also the government incentives program, it must be available for all the people to revive the SME, small and medium enterprise, those who are related to the tourism industry and which is considered the stakeholder of tourism industry. And it must be ensured that the loan payment and relaxation interest rate, and it must be available for small and medium enterprise to survive in this industry. And today, a very special moment in all over the world is ongoing, the COVID-19 pandemic, and such an epidemic is all over the world. The people they are under the mental stress. So the electronic media and print media, they should have taken a positive approach to support the tourism industry and to revamping the tourism. The electronic media and print media, they may again create the awareness among the people to traveling the different countries. And whenever they're traveling the different countries, up to a few months in upcoming days, we have to be maintain the health consciousness, and we have to be maintain the responsible tourism. Responsible tourism is a very important thing in 21st century. And after the COVID-19 pandemic, whenever the income of the people will be decreased, the standard of living will be decreased. So the tourism industry, they have to be collected the information from the intelligence, tourism intelligence, and they have to be observed the behavioral pattern of the tourists, and must also be offered the low price packages for domestic tourism. But in case of domestic tourism after the COVID-19 pandemic, within the very short time that this sector will be regained. But in case of international tourism, it will take time. And after the pandemic, it must be focused on cost-cutting approach. But in case of the cost-cutting approach, we may follow the video conferencing, virtual tourism, virtual conferences, and virtual tourism fair, along with monitor the tourist behavioral pattern. And due to the social and economic changes of COVID-19, because social aspect, the people thinking it will be the change, and they want to maintain up to a few months in upcoming days the social distancing, and they're just going to maintaining the rules and regulation of WHO, World Health Organization. So that is why we have to be rethinking regarding the behavioral pattern of tourists. And the World Tourism Organization, UNWTO, make all the international organization, the donor agencies and political support for quick recovery from the pandemic, and also make a wider action and recovery plan to revive the tourism industry and economy. In the post-viral world, the people might be allowed to traveling with antibodies against the COVID-19 freely with some sort of the health insurance and offered the discount and packages on airlines and hotel. But if we're just going to talking about the more recovery strategies, we have to be focused on virtual tourism. In upcoming days, the virtual tourism may be promoted the one country, the domestic tourism and international tourism. So if we are just going to attract the international tourists like the Italy, France, Switzerland, so we have to be follow the same policy, the virtual tourism. So after the COVID-19 pandemic, all over the world, the traveler, they would love to traveling again, but they are just going to maintaining the health consciousness, safety services, healthy services. So each and every tourism supporting or supplier organization, hotel, motel, tour operator, tour guiding, and everyone, they have to be rethinking regarding the behavioral pattern of the tourist. So I personally believe that the government, every country, they have to be provided the stimulus package for the tourism industry stakeholder to revive them from this adverse impact. So I personally believe that tourism is a very big industry right now and today, which having very good contribution to the economic development of a nation. And in a global economy, 10.3% GDP contribution, and which just created out of 10 people, 1 people a job opportunity created in tourism sector. So that is a very important sector. So I personally believe that in tourism sector, they are facing a very adverse impact, and due to the COVID-19, very big adverse impact on tourism sector. So every country, the government, they have to be taken some positive approach to revive this tourism sector. And at a time, the UNWTO, they provided some suggestion, and I personally believe that right now we have to be faces the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's why we have to be stay at home, and we have to be think about that travel tomorrow with the responsible tourism, and we will again revive our industry. And we hope that again the tourism that will create a very good contribution to the economic development of the nation, and that will also create a very big contribution again in upcoming days to the global economy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Dev, for your nice deliberation. Thank you very much once again. Now our next speaker is Dr. Devashish Sur. Sir is present here. I think sir does not need any introduction in the field of commerce. Everybody knows him. But as a formality, I have to introduce sir. So thank you very much, Dev sir, once again. Now I'm going to introduce Dr. Devashish Sur. Dr. Devashish Sur is professor at Department of Commerce of University of Burdwan, West Bengal, India. He has over 24 years of teaching experience at postgraduate level. He is an invited member of various academic bodies in different central and state university in India. Dr. Sur has acted as member of NACPUR team. Professor Sur has so far contributed more than 100 papers in reputed professional and academic journals. He has 4 books to his credit. Under his supervision, 17 research scholars, researcher and 21 scholars have completed their PhD and MPhil degree, respectively. I have also completed my PhD under Sir's supervision. So now I request Dr. Sur to present his deliberation. Please, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Yadav. Audible? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
শুনতে
sir.
পাচ্ছি।
Clear, sir.
Okay. Good morning to everyone present here. Respected principal of EGRA S.S.B College, Dr. Deepak Kumar Tamili, distinguished speaker from Bangladesh, Dr. Deb, and distinguished speaker from Kolkata, Professor Kaushik Chatterjee, esteemed participants, and Dr. Sunil Kumar Yadav of EGRA S.S.B College and Dr. Shiv Shankar Jena of BELDA College, who are the key architects of this mega event. Now, today we have assembled here to make some discussion on the issue entitled Risk in Indian Business Sector During the Pandemic of COVID-19. We all know that COVID-19 was first found in India in the last week of January 2020. That means we have already spent a period of more than 4 months. Lockdown started in India on 25th March 2020. That means we have already spent a period of 75 days. We have already completed 4th phase of lockdown, and now we are in the 5th phase. So there has been a tremendous impact of COVID-19 outbreak and subsequent lockdown on the Indian economy as well as world economy. So in this context, we can mention some information. We all know that the United States of America is the most powerful country in the world from the economic point of view. In fact, USA is the financially strongest country in the world. And USA, in the month of April 2020, the last month, last April, about 15 to 17% employees have lost their job. Hello? In USA, in the last April, about 15 to 17% employees have lost their job. Actually, more than 2 crore people have become jobless in the month of April 2020 in USA. Now, if we consider the India's position, India's situation, we find almost the same picture. Rather, it can be said that India's picture is more alarming. If we go through the report published by the CMI, Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, we find that unemployment rate, which was less than 7% in the mid-March 2020, has become more than 27%, 27.11% in the first week of May 2020. And it was 29% in the urban areas and 26% in the rural areas. Unemployment rate in India has slightly declined in the last week of May. As per the report published by the CMI on 27th May, the unemployment rate in India was 24%, and it was 26.5% in the urban areas, and it was 22.9% in the rural areas. And during this lockdown period, more than 12 crore people have lost their job, have become jobless during this pandemic period. So it has a severe effect on Indian business sector. Now, in this context, we can mention one study conducted by the Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, FICCI, FICCI has conducted one study on the basis of 380 big companies across the sectors. Now let us consider the major findings of this study. Number one, this study reveals that there has been a tremendous uncertainty in the Indian business environment during this pandemic period. COVID-19 is having deep impact on Indian businesses. Another important outcome of the study is that 72% of the sample companies have have been placed in the category of very high level of risk. This study also reveals that 70% of the sample companies are a degrowth. That means a negative growth in their sales turnover during the financial year 2020-21. So as a result, we can say that the size of the business or scale of operation will go down with the passage of time. So in this context, we can mention the names of some significant companies like L&T, Tata Motors, Ultratech Cement, and many companies belonging to the FMCG sector like ITC, Unilever, downsize their business operations during this pandemic, downsize their business operations in the current financial year. Another important outcome of the study is that 61% of the sample companies have postponed their expansion program for a period of 6 months to 12 months, and 33% of the sample companies have postponed their expansion program for a period of more than 12 months. Another notable outcome of the study is that 60% of the companies have postponed their fundraising plan for a period of 6 months to 12 months, and 25% of the sample companies have postponed their fundraising plan for a period of more than 1 year. So on the basis of this study, on the basis of the outcome derived from the study, it can be said that Indian businesses have been facing tremendous challenges emanated from COVID-19 outbreak and subsequent lockdown. Now let us consider some additional information in this respect. More than 6,600 Indian companies have legal linkages with companies in countries with a large number of confirmed COVID-19 cases. That means more than 6,600 Indian companies have legal linkages with those foreign companies which are situated in such countries where the outbreak of COVID-19 is severe. So in this respect, we can cite the example of China. We all know that China is a, we can say that there is a very close association between India and China in respect of international trade. And we also know that China is the world's largest exporter. It accounts for about 13% of the world export. And China is the second largest importer in the world. It accounts for about 11% of the world's import. China is the world's largest exporter and it accounts for about 13% of the world export. And out of this 13%, 5% comes to India. So on the basis of this, it can be said that Indians business sector largely depends on China. More specifically, we can mention that about 45% of the India's total electronics import comes from China. 1/3, that means about 33% of the India's total machinery imports come from China, and 40% of the India's total organic chemicals imports come from China. In case of fertilizer and automotive parts, this is 25%. About 70% of the India's total pharmaceutical ingredients, that means ingredients used in pharmaceutical sectors. 70% of the India's total pharmaceutical ingredients import come from China. And in case of mobile phone, this percentage is 90%. So on the basis of this, it can be said that these industries have been highly affected by the COVID-19 outbreak and subsequent lockdown. We all know that there is a close association between large-scale industry and micro and small and medium enterprises. That means MSME sector. There is a close association between these two. In fact, they are interdependent and interrelated. In fact, the large-scale industry depends on the supply made by the MSME sector, and MSME sector depends on the demand of the large-scale industry. So they are interrelated and interdependent. And it is also to be noted that MSME sector contributes about 31% of the India's GDP, and MSME sector generally follows a growth rate of at least 10%. And another important information regarding MSME sector is that 45% of the India's total exports are contributed by MSME sector. So we can say that MSME sector plays a very vital role in Indian business world, in Indian business sector, as well as the Indian economy. So due to this COVID-19 outbreak and subsequent lockdown, both the large-scale industries and small and medium enterprises have been severely affected. Now we can mention some additional information. According to the assessment made by the World Bank, it is expected that India's growth rate will be 1.5% to 2.8% during the current financial year. However, as per the projection made by the United Nations, UN, it is expected that the India's growth rate will be 1.2%. As per the projection made by the International Monetary Fund, IMF, it is expected that the India's GDP growth rate will be 1.9% in the current financial year. However, as per the recent statement made by the RBI Governor, Mr. Shaktikant Das, India is expecting a degrowth, that means a negative growth in its GDP during the financial year. So on the basis of this information, it can be said that the India's economy is facing tremendous challenges, and we can also say that the India's business sector has been facing tremendous challenges emanated from COVID-19 outbreak and subsequent lockdown. Now, what are the reasons behind it? We all know that there are four basic components of GDP: personal consumption expenditure, business investment, government spending, and net export. And we also know that personal consumption expenditure is the biggest components of GDP. Now, if we consider these components one by one in the context of the present day situation, we can understand it more clearly. If we consider the net export, that means the excess of export over import, we find that there is a drastic fall in both export and import activities during this pandemic situation. Now, if we consider government spending, we find that the government is paying salary only, and in many cases we find that salary has been cut. There is no business investment, there is no new business investment during this pandemic situation. So we can say that the India's GDP will almost entirely depend on the personal consumption expenditure in near future. And we can also say that as per the principles followed in economics, if the personal consumption expenditure goes up, obviously the real sector growth rate increases, and if real sector growth rate increases, employment increases, and if employment increases, income increases. and as a result, demand increases. That means purchasing power or spending power increases. But in the present situation, we find just reverse picture. We find just reverse picture, just opposite picture. There has been a drastic fall in the personal consumption expenditure. There has been a drastic fall in the personal consumption expenditure during this pandemic situation. As a result, real sector growth rate has declined significantly, and we can say that there has been a clear upward trend in the unemployment during this pandemic situation. That means employment rate has declined significantly, income has declined, and as a result, demand has gone down notably during this pandemic situation. We can say that both the internal supply chain as well as global supply chain have been completely disrupted, have been severely disrupted during this pandemic situation. Now, what is happening in Indian businesses in respect of risk? We all know that in today's challenging and competitive environment, efficient management of risk is an integral component of the overall corporate strategy to create shareholders' value. In running the business, a company is exposed to various risks from within or outside the company. The total risk associated with a company can be broadly divided into two components. One is business risk and the other is financial risk. And we also know that there are three basic components of business risk: economy risk, industry risk, and company risk. That means firm-specific risk. And we also know that economy risk depends on economy-specific factors, and economy-specific factors have been highly affected during this abnormal situation. In fact, inflation has gone up, exchange rates have widely fluctuated, even restrictive regulations have changed rapidly during this pandemic situation. So as a result, there has been a clear upward trend in the degree of economy risk associated with the Indian businesses during this pandemic situation. Similarly, industry risk depends on certain industry-specific factors which have also changed rapidly with the passage of time during this pandemic situation. So as a result, industry risk has also increased significantly during this abnormal situation. Now, if we consider company risk, that means firm-specific risk, we find almost the same picture. In fact, increase in both economy risk and industry risk has resulted in increase in company risk, that means the firm-specific risk associated with the Indian business enterprises. Because we know that firm-specific risk, that means company risk, is directly influenced by the company-specific factors or firm-specific factors, and it is also indirectly influenced by certain macroeconomic variables, that means economy-specific factors as well as industry-specific factors. That's why we can say that increase in economy risk as well as industry risk has resulted in increase in company risk, that means firm-specific risk associated with the Indian businesses during this pandemic situation. Now, we also know that the genesis of company risk lies in instability in the company's one or more front, important of which are instability in cost behavior pattern, instability in revenue generating capability using capital base, and instability in short-term debt paying capability. These inherent weaknesses lead to cost structure risk, capital productivity risk, and liquidity risk. Now, if we consider cost structure risk, we find that there has been a tremendous volatility in the cost of material, labor, and other items used in business operations. So as a result, cost structure risk has increased significantly during this pandemic situation. Now, if we consider the capital productivity risk, we find that there has been a significant increase in instability in revenue generating capability of business firms. So obviously, the capital productivity risk has stepped up notably during this pandemic situation. Now, if we consider the liquidity risk, we find almost the same picture. In fact, a rapid fall in demand, instability in cost of input, as well as price of output, instability in revenue generating capability, all have resulted in increase in instability in short-term debt paying capability. So we can say that the liquidity risk associated with the Indian businesses has increased significantly during this pandemic situation. So all the components of firm specific risk, that means all the components of company risk, have increased significantly during this pandemic situation. And we can also say that the economy risk and industry risk have also increased significantly during this pandemic situation. So as a result, we can say that there has been a clear upward trend in the degree of business risk associated with the Indian businesses during this abnormal situation. Now, if we consider the financial risk, we find almost the same picture. Because we all know that financial risk depends not only on the sources which have been used for the creation of pool of funds, but also fluctuations in foreign exchanges as well as the fluctuations in interest rate. Now, in this present day situation, in this pandemic situation, we find that the fluctuations in foreign exchange rates as well as interest rates have taken place. So as a result, the degree of financial risk associated with the Indian businesses has increased significantly during this pandemic situation. Theoretically, it can be said that there should be a high degree of negative relationship between business risk and financial risk. We know that a company having high business risk should maintain low financial risk in order to keep its total risk within a reasonable limit. Therefore, theoretically, it can be said that there should be a high degree of negative relationship between business risk and financial risk. But in this pandemic situation, the outcome of this pandemic situation arising out of COVID-19 outbreak and subsequent lockdown does not conform to the theoretical argument. And we find that both the business risk and financial risk associated with the business enterprises in India have increased significantly during this pandemic situation. So we can say that there has been a clear upward trend in the total risk associated with the Indian businesses during this abnormal situation. Now, what is the way out? What are the measures that are to be adopted in order to solve this problem, in order to combat this situation, in order to mitigate the risk associated with Indian businesses? In fact, we can say that we are not in a position to make final prescription. We are not in a position to make final conclusion. We are not in a position to identify the measures which are to be adopted in order to combat this situation, in order to mitigate the risk associated with this the Indian businesses during this pandemic situation. But we have to mention some at least 2 points, at least 2 or 3 points in this respect. First of all, we can say that public distribution system should be efficiently managed. Now, you can ask one question: is there any relationship between public distribution system and Indian businesses? I must say that yes, there is a positive relationship between the success of public distribution system and the success of Indian businesses. Because we can say that if the public distribution system is properly run, then only people will get adequate amount of food grain as well as adequate amount of other essential commodities. And if it happens, then only people will be in a position to spend some money for acquisition of non-essential commodities also. So as a result, the consumption expenditure will go up. That means the demand will go up. So on the basis of this, it can be said that there is a positive relationship between the success of public distribution system and the success of Indian businesses. And so revival of Indian businesses will largely depend on the success of the public distribution system. So, but we all know that the public distribution system is not running properly in India due to certain causes. So, in this context, we can mention at least 3 points. Number one, lack of information. We all know that the government does not have adequate information about the needs of the people, especially the people living in rural areas, especially the people living in the remote villages. The government does not have adequate information about the needs of the people. So, as the government does not have adequate information about the needs of the people, obviously we can say that the proper distribution of essential commodities cannot be made. So, second point is unequal distribution of essential commodities may arise. That means if the government does not have adequate information about the needs of the people, obviously unequal distribution of essential commodities will arise. And third point is very important, that is high level of corruption is involved. High level of corruption is involved in the public distribution system, because we can say that the huge amount of fund is involved in the public distribution system. So in this context, we can mention at least 2 points. The first point is about 80 crores people are the beneficiaries of public distribution system in India. So on the basis of this, it can be said that huge amount of fund is invested, huge amount of fund is involved in the public distribution system. Huge amount of fund is involved in the public distribution system. And the second point is more important. In the current financial year, that means the financial year 2020-21, the fund allocated by the government for providing food subsidy is rupees 1,15,570 crore. 1,15,570 crore. So on the basis of this, it can be said that the huge amount of fund is involved in the public distribution system, and that's why high level of corruption is involved in this public distribution system. So if we minimize these odds, if we minimize these drawbacks, these limitations or these negative points, then only the public distribution system can effectively run, that can effectively be run, or can efficiently be managed. So if again we can say that if we minimize these odds, then only the public distribution system can be efficiently managed. The second point is we can mention the prescription of famous economics Professor Abhijit Binayak Bandyopadhyay. And according to the prescription of Professor Abhijit Binayak Bandyopadhyay, print currency note and distribute these currency notes among people without considering the issue associated with the with inflation. And it has already been done in USA and Japan. And according to the argument of Professor Abhijit Binayak Bandyopadhyay, if people get money, obviously the consumption expenditure will go up, and as a result growth rate of real sector will go up, and employment will increase, income will increase, and ultimately we can say that the demand will increase. So the argument or the prescription of Professor Abhijit Binayak Bandyopadhyay can be adopted, can be implemented in India. And now in this context we can mention the name of renowned professor Professor Raghuram Rajan, ex-governor of RBI, and even famous Marxist economics Professor Prabhat Patnaik of JNU, and we can mention the name of CII president Mr. Uday Kotak. All have recommended, all have made the same recommendations, all have given the same opinion. So we can say that the prescription of Abhijit Binayak Bandopadhyay can be implemented, can be adopted in India in order to combat this situation, in order to face this problem, in order to face the challenges arising out of COVID-19 outbreak and subsequent lockdown. But we can say that it has a negative side also. It has a negative side because now we can say that the confidence level of people has gone down significantly. The confidence level of people has gone down significantly because people are not in a position to predict what will happen in near future. We are not in a position to predict what will happen in near future. So if the confidence level does not improve, the people will not spend money for their present consumption. They will save money for their future consumption. So if it happens, we can say that the money will not come back to the market. That means the consumption expenditure will not go up. That means the demand will not go up. So this is the negative side of the prescription of Professor Abhijit Binayak Bandopadhyay. So during the last 25 minutes or 25 or 30 minutes, we have been mentioning only the odds, only the negative point. Now we have to mention one positive point, one positive side, one hope. We all know that China is the largest exporter. It accounts for about 13% of the world export, and China is the second largest importer after USA, second largest importer in the world. It accounts for about 11%. So we can say that China plays a very vital role in international market, in international businesses. And it is expected that China will not be able to retain its shares in the international market in near future due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Because we all can remember that COVID-19 was first reported in China in the last week of December 2019. So it has a severe negative impact on Chinese economy. It has a severe negative impact on China in respect of perception also, people's perception also. So we can say that if it happens, obviously we can say that the foreign capital may come to India. Foreign capital may come to India because India enjoys certain competitive advantages. India enjoys certain benefits. So in this context, we can mention at least 3 points. India has sufficient cheap labor force. Secondly, India has adequate number of skilled IT personnel. And thirdly, we can say that the political stability in India is much higher as compared to the other neighboring countries. So if it happens, that means if the foreign capital comes to India, then it is expected that India's business sector will do better in near future. But we all know that success of any projection or success of any prediction or any activity largely depends on certain factors. And now we can mention at least one factor, at least one very important factor. So in this context, we can mention the name of famous social and political theorist, Professor John Elster, Professor of Political Science, Columbia University. And we must mention his classic, his famous book entitled The Cement of Society, a Study of Social Order. According to his famous book, any prediction, any projection can be successfully achieved if proper cooperation is there. That means if proper cooperation is present in the economy, then only any projection or any prediction or any activity can be successfully achieved. But we all know that there are certain factors which may hamper, which may hurt the strength of cooperation. So in this context, we can mention at least 3 points. First of all, we can mention that personal ego, it is associated with human being, and if personal ego takes place, obviously the strength of cooperation will go down. Second one is irregularities and corruptions. These are also associated with human being. If irregularities and corruption arise, obviously the personal interest takes place. So uh, we can say that if irregularities and corruptions arise, obviously the strength of cooperation will go down. And third point is that irrationalities, it is also associated with human behavior. If we are not rational enough, if we are irrational, obviously we can say that the strength of cooperation will go down. So if we minimize the negative impact of these factors, if we minimize the negative impact of these odds, of these factors, so then only we can say that the strength of cooperation will go up. So, and if strength of cooperation increases, then only any projection or any prediction or any activity can be successfully achieved. So if it happens, then it is expected that India's business sector will do better in near future. So with this hope, I am concluding my lecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your nice presentation. Thank you once again. Next, our next speaker is Kaushik Chatterjee from St. Xavier College, Kolkata. So I just want to give a little bit information about him. Professor Kaushik Chatterjee is an M.Com, MBA, PGD MM, PGD HRM. Presently, he is the assistant professor and professor in charge at Department of Business Law at Xavier College, Autonomous, Kolkata, India. He is an excellent teacher and has more than 15 years of teaching experience in the field of accounting and finance management as well as in law. He authored many books for B.Com. He has publication in national and international journals. He served various government and non-government organizations in different capacities for many years. So, sir, please, now you can start your presentation, sir. So please, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sunil. I bestow my gratitude to both the college authorities, the principals of both the colleges, HODs of commerce, and they are the conveners of the webinar. And finally, to all the audiences of today's webinar to cooperate and be with us and take part in this seminar. This webinar success depends on you. Now, before starting this presentation, I want to state that I am going to speak on education, the present situation in this crisis moment, and what would happen in the forthcoming years or within 2 to 3 years or in the future. So before that, I want to share my screen and start it as such. Hope I am audible. Yes, share audio. I want to start this webinar and my session with a small poem. Yes. I would see that this present situation demands for or is perfect for this poem where अंधेरे का दीपक है अंधेरी रात पर दीवा जलाना कब मना है हर है अंधेरी रात पर दीवा जलाना कब मना है which states that though the night is dark but is there any restriction of lighting a lamp though the night is dark but is there any restriction of lighting a lamp पर किसी उजड़े हुए को फिर बसाना कब मना है it indirectly states that there is no restriction to reconstruct or regenerate the demolished. And there is one more poem by eminent poet, the Lebanese poet Khalil Gibran, regarding fear. He named this poem as Fear. It has got a resemblance with the present situation in which we are. It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path she has traveled from the peaks of the mountains, the longing, winding road crossing forests and villages. And in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. Here, we can bring a resemblances with the major stakeholders of education and educational institutions. Let it be the faculties, the administrators or the owners of these institutions, and the students. All these three major stakeholders can be compared with the river. They had already passed a path which had many exams, various types of turmoils, but now we are in such a standpoint where we are going to enter an ocean. So we have a fear in our mind that shall we enter the ocean? What is the fear in the mind of this river? It seems that the river will disappear into the ocean. That means we are into such a standpoint where we had a traditional method of education, and right now we could foresee the online system, this new educational system which we are going to call the new normal. Shall we be entering into that? Do you have a fear of disappearance, our disappearance over there? Many new institutions may come up. Many institutions may not find a right path. So shall we enter the ocean or not? Are we going to dissolve, disappear into the ocean or not? You may write into the chat box, into the comment box, that how many of you want to be in the traditional method of educational system, and how many of you want to enter the online system. You can write online, somebody can write offline. I want to see on the chat box here itself. Write just online or offline. Which one do you want? Do you think that we would be going back after this post-COVID scenario? After 2 to 3 years, we would once again go back to the traditional educational system or not? So be with me, write yes or not over here. Online, yes, I'm getting the chats over here. Please write over there, online or offline. Which one do you want? Okay. So we are getting both offline, online. Many are writing over here. Saswato, Kritiraj, Kripesh, Nirmal, Lavanya, Ramtanu, Babje, Saurav, many are writing over here. So let us proceed to the next part of the poem. So here he says in his poem Fear. Okay, great. We are getting a good response. So the next part of the poem states that, but there is no way, the river cannot go back, nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean. Listen to it. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because only then will fear disappear. So we shall get into the online mode, the new normal. We shall get into it, because that's where the river will know it's not about disappearing into the ocean, but of becoming the ocean. We want to enrich ourselves. We shall enrich. We are the persons who are guiding the students, guiding different institutions, and shall have the courage. We shall be impatient always in order to grab the new technologies which are coming up. So let us proceed. Let me proceed to the event list. Here, once again, I'm going to a small software which you can also adopt while you are going for webinars or any kind of such seminars. You can make it get the response from the people. So we are going live with it. It's called as the Vox Vote. You can log into voxvote.com, not log in, just type in your Google voxvote.com. Please type into it voxvote.com, and you'd get a point, a pin 20866. I'm giving it over here. It is 20866 is the room which you have to enter. 20866. 20866 is the room which you have to enter. I'm starting an interactive webinar, and you'd get your question on your screen. Please enter into voxvote.com. There you can just go for voxvote.com. Yes, 20866. Type over there 20866 into the voxvote.com. They will ask for getting a question. So just answer those questions. So answer those questions. It is just to show you how. Yes, this is the number 20866. And go for answering the questions, voting it. Let us see those who are over here interactive, how they are voting, what is their opinion. Now we're going to the next question for this. Are you in support of online education? Yes or no? So you answered. Don't type 20866 here. You just answer into the voxvote.com, wherein the room is 20866. Once again, I'd be giving you the opportunity of answering all the questions. Yes, not 30, it is 20866. Which mode of online education do you support? I will discuss them regarding them later on. Synchronous, asynchronous, or combination of these. We are on air. let us go to the next question, wherein you would find, yes, you can go for ranking some of the online classrooms here. Yes, I'm very happy that you all are reflecting your answers. I'd show you how online we can go for even taking the response from the students. I'd once again refresh or start with the very first question. So you'd get an opportunity once again to answer all these questions. So please enter the room with the number 20866 and answer each of the questions. So the first one you could see on the screen also, that do you want the webinar to be interactive? Yes, 100% have answered. 2 users only voted for. Why not all? So everybody try to vote it. We have once again the time. The time starts now. Yes, this is the final one where you have the last chance to vote. Do you want the webinar to be interactive? Number 1. The website is voxvote, 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 voxvote.com, VOXVOTE, voxvote.com. It is voxvote.com, voxvote.com, 20866. Yes, once again you can go for voting, after which you will start the webinar accordingly. Yes, yes, now. So go to Google, keep it over there, keep your Facebook chat over there, and shift on to the Google, find the voxvote.com. Yes, now 16 users voted. You can see on the screen, as there is a difference between the webinar time, near about 15 to 16 seconds difference is there, and the live going on. So you have to cooperate with me. Yes, the first question is over. So here 6 users were there. You can see on the screen how many are in support of online education and how many are not. Okay, now we are going to the next. They want it to be interactive. Come to the next. Which mode of online education do you support? Synchronous, asynchronous, combination of these? Yes, we got the majority vote on combination of these. Yes. Okay. Now let us proceed. So once we go for all these questions, if you have already experienced some of the classrooms, then you can go for a rank of the online classrooms. Now, just I am showing you the method in which you can take the vote, take the response. And finally, we have arrived at the last question of ranking the interactive online classrooms. Okay, let us now stop and get the final answer. So this is the rank which you have got. Now let us proceed to the remaining part of the session. Let us now start with okay, let us now start with a presentation wherein we have to first understand what is education. Now, these are the topics I am going to cover regarding meaning and types of education, pedagogy, andragogy, and heutagogy, hands-on example of preparing PPTs of practical-based subjects of commerce, which many of the faculties want to know. Next, a brief history of virtual learning, and next, virtual classrooms, how to choose classroom software, difference between traditional and online classroom, merits and limitations of online classes, free softwares and websites that the academicians can make use of in order to make their materials more presentable. So let me start with what is education. In its broadest sense, it is the means through which the aim, the habits, skills, customs, values, etc. of one generation is passed on to another, even from local to that of the global. And in its narrow sense or technical sense, education is the formal process by which the society deliberately transmits its accumulated knowledge. Now, as we are going for the term education, let me make it very clear that if we classify it into school education and higher education, basically the term pedagogy, peda means child, the pedagogy is applicable for school education. Here, I am focusing more on higher education because according to the audiences available over here, more are into higher education. So instead of pedagogy, though it prevails, but we have to more focus on andragogy and heutagogy. In school education, we do find that the teaching is imparted by the teachers, the faculty, where we can say the person is sage on the stage. Just after the parents, the children look admiringly and get all the information from the teacher. But when we are entering these children, when growing up through various fields, family cultures, etc., and the technology what they are using in higher education and appearing in a higher education, it is there are different other principles, what we can say. They learn from their peers, they learn from their experiences, or learn from various other technological sources and so on. So here we are entering into the field of andragogy. It is self-directed. The teacher's role is more like a facilitator. So we have to think ourselves more as a facilitator. We are guide on the side instead of sage on the stage. And heutagogy is something different, where you would find that it is self-determined. Far further in their higher education or in their life, people wants to get more education in different other fields. They are self-determined, they are searching for their own education, and they are reflecting onto it using more that of the gadgets, etc. Now, if we find that which one is more important, pedagogy, andragogy, and heutagogy, it is nothing other than the combination of all these what we want. So today, into the higher education, we should impart education in different roles. As a teacher, as a facilitator, as well as we shall motivate them to self-direct themselves to search for various other sources wherefrom they can gather knowledge. So we are into adult learning. Adults are not just grown children. Adults learn differently from children. So why different? So read the Malcolm Shepard Knowles first stated that the adult learning theory, and if you can go through, there are various other sites, etc., from where you can learn the adult learning theory established by Malcolm Shepard Knowles. The major principles of this theory are that adults need to know. So when they are into the colleges, they often ask that, why am I learning this? They are coming to the colleges for getting the knowledge, something what they need. So adults need to know why they need to learn something. Adults need to learn experientially, so they want to experience what they are studying. So as it is conducted, this webinar is conducted from the Department of Commerce jointly by both the EGRA College and BELDA College. So we expect more number of faculties from the commerce field. So whatever we are imparting, the education we are imparting, everything can be experienced. Nothing is something superficial and so on. So adults need to learn experientially. Adults approach learning as problem solving, and adults learn best when the topic is of immediate value. They always ask, why shall I learn this? Why shall I learn this particular subject and so on? What is the impact of learning this? So we have to treat them separately. It is not the children. They are not just the grown children. They are adults. They are different from that of the children. So if we go through the journey of learning, I'm not going into the depth of behaviorism, liberationism, which started long back, gradually went for social constructivism, and finally cognitive constructivism, where problems are solved through groups. Lastly, we have arrived at a point of connectivism, that is George Siemens in 2005 have profound it. He shown the impact of technology into education, teaching students to be learners in digital age. So we are focusing more on that, the teaching students to be learners in the digital age. We shall not spoon feed them always with the notes, books, etc. So here we are motivating them to be learners. We are creating the learners. We are creating people or students who would search for what they want. Where from shall they read? Where from shall they know? Let them search it. Students, once logged in, can navigate through the sources of knowledge and learn autonomously. This is what going to stay now and in near future. So gradually we are entering into a major area wherein we lagged behind in the earlier. We continued with the traditional mode of education, and we were not ready directly to go online. Many institutions, many individuals even tried for this, adopting the technology and carrying forward with the students to much more futuristic attitude towards their education. Now, if you want to enter the higher education part, so let us start the transition from our journey from physical to virtual. What is this all about? So we have seen, we actually, those who are born prior to 1995 or 1990s are actually the immigrants to this new internet world. And those who are born post 1995 can be called as the netizens or the pure citizens. So here we are showing how we are gradually moving from the physical to that of the virtual. So if we go back to the history of virtual learning, we would find in the 1700s, when lessons were sent weekly to interested audiences. So we can call it as virtual, or we can call it as e-learning, or we can call it as distance learning, which started from this arena. So in 1700s, when lessons were sent weekly to the interested audiences by mail in the US, and the correspondence were taken up in the writing mode from them. So the interaction between the teacher and the students were not face-to-face. It started in 1700s. In 1840s, Isaac Pitman taught his pupils shorthand via correspondence. It was the University of Wisconsin-Madison that first used the term distance education in 1892. In 1924, the first testing machine was invented. Later, the University of Houston offered its first college course in 1953 on public television in the United States. The live telecast aired for 13 to 15 hours each week at night so that working students could watch the classes. Even if you go back to the curriculum as well as the study of commerce, it started in Kolkata in the City College, and it was in the evening. Why evening? Because people who were engaged in the banking sectors or other companies, etc., could be taught with commerce as a separate subject. So why shall we think in the traditional mode only? So this taking of classes in different hours other than the day classes only started in India also in the 1960s. In 1954, B.F. Skinner, a Harvard professor, invented the teaching machine program. It was a programmed instruction to the students. In 1960, the first computer-based training program, Plato, that is program logic for automated teaching operations. In 1969, the US Department of Defense commissioned ARPANET, a packet switching network, to implement TCP/IP, the foundation technologies of the internet. In 1970, the Hovering Computer Managed Learning System was developed in London, and over 100 teachers and 10,000 students using it by 1980. In 1984, the faculty and students at the University of Waterloo developed applications together by using networked IBM PCs. A year later, in 1985, Nova Southern University's Graduate School of Computer and Information Sciences awarded accredited graduate degrees through online courses. Think it was in 1985, near about 35 years ago. In the mid-90s, when the idea of personal computers was still in infancy, distance learning seemed to cross the boundaries of traditional education. Students relied on discussion boards, chats, and digital documents for learning. The term e-learning has only been in existence since 1999. CBT systems, seminar, online learning, virtual learning, these are the terms which was being coined during this period. It was only when the University of Phoenix and Kaplan University offered 2-year accelerated bachelor degree programs, the US-based institute saw a huge influx of international students in their virtual courses. And it was in the 2000s when online education industry started growing leaps and bounds with the advent of personal electronic devices. The industry saw an unprecedented growth in the increased use of smart mobile devices. It was projected to have hit $107 billion in 2015. What is virtual classroom? A virtual classroom is a digital replica of traditional classroom or training room. The instructors teach and the participants learn in real time, face to face, but via internet enabled technology devices. The classroom on the meeting room staple whiteboard remains intact. Brainstorming, ideation, and discussions happen in real time. Tests are given and taken pre, post, and even during the session, as I was taking some of the votes right now in the middle of the webinar. The reports are ready right after the sessions is over or in real time. Everything remains the way it is. The only difference is that an online classroom uses technology to support instruction and learning. What are the advantages of virtual classroom? It offers more flexibility that a traditional classroom offers. You can deliver the instruction to a geographically dispersed audience at one time. So these are the benefits what we are getting, that you are now not restricted to a geographical location only, traveling from house to the college to house and back. Both the instructors and learners have rich experience of collaborating with other learners and instructors from around the world. The attendance is automatically tracked. You need not have to wait for that. You need not have to take into account it is automatically tracked. Moreover, online collaboration typically incorporates more communication tools such as chat, open discussions, boards, polls, media content, and social media. So the online class software works in a similar fashion for businesses. So the business houses are also interested, and they are also persuading. They will also finance various colleges and institutions so that they also get the benefit that the students who are coming out from the colleges would be trained right from their graduation how to attend these online classes, use these softwares, and further proceed with the technology. You can train employees, vendors, partners, customers face-to-face in real time via a standalone app, or you can also integrate it with your website, CMS, ERP, or your LMS. You can conduct the training even when the stakeholders are on the move. Many used to ask that, sir, during the meeting, during the class, etc., where shall I be? Shall I be at my house or somewhere else? I said you can be on an auto or bus or on your car. They can access the e-learning material and attend the live session from their smartphones, tablets, or their laptops, as you all are doing right now. So right now, I am going to discuss that faculties are facing these problems or issues, and that is why we are into this webinar to know regarding what differences are going to take part in this educational area. The sudden shift or plunge, so we were not prepared. We are having a sudden shift or plunge from traditional class to virtual class. This hasty nature of that transition gives us some kind of tension, stress, etc. Is it not? Absence of ideal teaching conditions are not there. We are habituated to one size fits all education. Many teachers used to say the human touch is losing in online education. But really, if you do think that when there are 60 to 80 students sitting in a class, especially in commerce, we do find this. Did you have the real human touch towards them? It is learner-centric teaching is going to take part for maintaining the interest. Catering to different learning styles, we have to adopt them, accept them. Interactive and collaborative learning is going to take part. So we have to be prepared. We have to be perfect in whatever we are saying, speaking, etc. Provisions for formative assessment and adapting ever-changing technological landscape. So shall we get prepared with this or not? So there will be very soon a digital divide. When the term digital divide was coined in India, we thought or we used it for the rural poor and for the urban persons who are going to get the benefits and who are not going to get the benefits. But this term digital divide would be there even within the faculties, within the institutions. You'd find that many faculties, though may not be well prepared, they may be afeared, but there is nothing to fear about all these to go online. It is as simple as, or further more simpler than your offline classes, the physical classes what you used to take. That is what I'm going to show. So we right now have an unplanned move, and that is causing us a stress or tensed move. So what is this unplanned move? Neither the teacher nor the students are trained for online teaching and learning. In the very first moment, I stated that we have major three stakeholders, and everybody is in such a fear. Everybody is not that practiced with the new upcoming online mode, offline mode, or a blend of two, whatever it is. So everybody is thinking about, we are not sure, we are uncertain about the future. We are actually not moving by ourselves, rather we are being pushed into the ICT, perform or perish. But no, we would not be perished. We would get into, we would join hands in hands, and we would proceed together. The community as a whole will proceed together towards the next future. So insufficient bandwidth and a little preparation will result in a poor user experience. Of course, it is the duty of the government to increase the bandwidth with those providers, etc. There is lack of policy framework right now. We do not know which classroom our college will undertake, will use. We do not know the softwares what will be used by our own institutions or by us. Lack of preparedness of all the three major stakeholders. Now, there are reasons to justify the development of online educational system. But before moving into this, I want to shift once again to some of your queries. Often I could see that many of them are, or you just tell me in the chat box, in the comment box, that those persons who are teaching the problem-based subjects of commerce, they are facing a greater problem. They often say that how can these long questions and long answers, or how to draw all these, we are not using the chalk and the board. Of course, though the classrooms, the softwares are providing many things, but you would not be using, you may not be always using the board what they are providing, the digital board. You can even at home keep a whiteboard at your background, the backdrop, you can use that. But other than that, I am going to show you some of the methods or means by which we can easily teach, let it be accounts or the direct or indirect tax or cost, whatever it is. So with a very simple example, I would show how we can use the PowerPoint presentation. So that is what, yes, you are showing. Let me proceed to that particular part which is of your interest. Okay, let me take a simple example of this. Okay, let us go for solving a problem. Okay, now solving a problem, when the problem is there, let it be an accounts problem. Let us go for this particular problem of accounting. It is from the chapter of depreciation. Suppose there is a fixed asset, you could see the opening and the closing balances are being provided of the machinery and the accumulated depreciation. A machine costing rupees 20,000 was sold for 10,000, and accumulated depreciation till date on the machine was rupees 6,000. The question asked to show machinery account, accumulated depreciation account, and machinery disposal account. Now, while we are providing this via PPT, even PowerPoint presentations can show step-by-step development of the problem as used to write on the board. But there is additional advantage over here that we can go back, we can once again forward or back and show the person how we are proceeding with the sum. Let me proceed. The first thing what you have to do is keep the problem, just the problem was here, keep the problem in small fonts either horizontally at the top, and then draw the entire solution below. So this is the method or means by which we are going to show. But you would ask me a question, sir, are you going to show the entire answer? It is more like a book. That problem is there and the solution is given at the drop, just below it. Or we can also opt for either the problem is given on the left hand side, take the problem to the left hand side and keep the solution to the right hand side. Which one do you prefer? Here you can see the problem with working notes at its bottom and the solution on the right hand side. Now, here I am going to show that step by step how we could show the proceedings or the procedure in which we are taking a student towards completion of this problem. Come to this part that here we are showing the machinery account, so you can use different colors for depicting the accounts as it was here. Now machinery, accumulated depreciation and machinery disposal account. Now these three accounts are being depicted with three different colors. It helps the students to understand very easily. Now let us proceed with the first posting of the opening balances. For example, here you would find that the opening balance of the machinery account is taken towards the machinery account. The accumulated depreciation is posted to the accumulated depreciation account. Is it clear? Now we are proceeding with the next step, that is posting the closing balances. Post the closing balances now. 80,000 is the closing balance of machinery account and accumulated depreciation closing balance is 30,000. Now we are proceeding with the question, wherein we are going to show with the change of color as well as the movement of the amount of rupees 20,000, which the cost of the machine was 20,000, which is to be sold. So here you would find 20,000, which is posted to the credit of machinery account and taken to that of the machinery disposal account. So with the help of the same color as well as the arrow marks, we can show where it is being carried forward. Next, we are going to show the accumulated depreciation on it as 6,000. Now this 6,000 is also taken to the accumulated depreciation account, taken out from that and posted to the machinery disposal account. You need not worry, it is not happening with any kind of animation. It is a very simple method which I would show you by which you can proceed as such. Next, the 10,000 at which it is being sold is posted to the machinery disposal account. It is sold at 10,000. Now we are going to balance all the accounts. These are the balances what we got, what they are. Now you can explain to your students that these are the balances we are getting from each of the accounts. So you can go back, you can go forward, showing the impact of each of them, how you have balanced, and finally conclude them what these balances are. Now let me just show you how this animation is being made. It is not an animation at all. A very easy method which you can adopt in order to show, show with the help of PPT the problems, let it be of taxation, costing, whatever it is. The thing is that we are concluding with this next one, wherein I am showing that this is the complete sum what we saw in the beginning. So you have to prepare. The only hard work you have to do is to prepare. First, you can go for preparing the tables, etc. Keep these tables in a Word file. From there, you just bring those Word files into the PPT, copy and paste them over here, or you can also prepare the tables in the PowerPoint itself and complete the sum as it is being completed in this particular slide. Once you draw the complete picture of the problem and the solution, as you have written it down, prepared the slide, now copy the slide, which is a completed slide. Just go for copying the slide and copy paste it near about 10 or 15 times, as many steps in which you want to show it to the students. So just copy and paste it 15 times or 10 times or 7 times, as many steps you want to show to proceed with the problem. And this is what, and once you have copied them down, go back to the first slide, wherein I would show you that it is nothing other than, so let me show you the method. Here is the first slide, next comes the second, wherein I have prepared it side by side. Now once you have this particular slide, yes, this is the slide what I had prepared, showing the problem on the left hand side and the completed solution on the right hand side. Go for copy pasting it multiple times, as many times as you want. So once you have copy pasted, go to the next slide, or yes, in the next slide, just delete all the things you have posted over there. Just delete everything being posted on those accounts. In the next slide I am showing here, in the next slide, just post only the, that means delete everything. In the next slide you would be having everything written. Delete all those items you do not want, other than the first two things, suppose the opening balances. So just keep the opening balances over there and delete other things. Go to the next one, you would be having the completed accounts, out of which delete all those things. So you have to keep in mind the things, the postings what you want to show in the next slide. So opening balances now comes with the closing balances. So if you are preparing something in a tabular mode, also in tables, in rows and columns, where you have completed a sum, just go for keeping only the topmost row. Then go for the keeping in the next slide, keep the first and the second row. In the third side, keep the first, second and third row. These are the methods in which you can go step by step solving each and every problems, and it would appear as if you are drawing or writing in each and it is coming out of animation. It is not at all an animation. So this is the method in which you can accomplish. And if I go for the next one, now come to the next. Yes, I'd be answering all your questions regarding the, maybe regarding the rural poor students or other students who do not have the access to internet. I would answer your question later on. Now let me proceed with e-education. Now let us go for synchronous and asynchronous. In the primitive past, it was only the synchronous mode of education. Why? Synchronous activities are those that take place at a scheduled time and place, such as in a classroom, face-to-face, or even online courses nowadays in a live web conference or chat room. And it is a real-time exchange of ideas, or communication is possible. It's a full duplex communication. Often when we are also attending the webinars, if we want something in excess, that means we want those, suppose the PowerPoints, in order to have a retention of them and to see it later on, here comes the requirement of the asynchronous. Let us think about the Gurukul mode of education, where in the primitive stage the students used to just listen to what their guru stated, and they carried nothing other than the remembrances of what the person stated. Gradually, some notes or few notes, something they were allowed to write something and take it back. And this started with the asynchronous mode of education. So asynchronous activities are those for which the student determines the time and place to complete work, which is an advantage for the people like parents and working students who need a flexible schedule in order to pursue their education. Now we can say that students are able to respond in detail to a question or topic. We cannot now persuade students just to attend the class and retain whatever they heard from us. They often ask for some notes. They follow books. So these are something which they are following, not with an interactive form, rather at home, at their own pace, at their own timing. So synchronous and asynchronous, as we had asked the question earlier, so it is that we need both of them. Because of its asynchronous nature, online learning requires more self-direction and discipline. Online learning is best to the highly motivated student who is willing to take the full responsibility for his or her own learning with proper time management. Now, I would say that Indian education needs a change. What type of change do you want? We were continuing with the traditional mode. Very few institutions were going online. Now, introduction of this online or e-education, etc., gives us much of the benefits or merits. We can have a 24/7 access. The internet and the online mode operate 24/7, ensuring anywhere, anytime connectivity. Student can learn at their convenient time. Whatever they are, they just need a device and internet connectivity to study and learn. Global pool of knowledge. So ICT overrides the barriers of time and geographical boundaries, or the boundaries of the teachers. So they are connected with various sources from which they are gathering, they are pooling the knowledge. It gives an offline study mode, video lectures. What many of the colleges and teachers are adopted is that they send video lectures, audio lectures, notes, their own printed, their own notes in the virtual PDF, etc. form, or even maybe it's the scanned notes from various books. Whatever it is, these video lectures, seminars relating to academic and non-academic can be made available to students, because we would now go for a discussion of the online classrooms wherein everything what we do can be recorded for future use. So in ready and easy downloadable formats, thanks to the compatible versions of software which have been put in place for the same. Now, each of your questions would be answered gradually, that as we could find that these persons, that means those who are using these, the online classrooms will be with the modes that you need not have to download. Everything would be stored in the cloud. In order to drop down, in order to have a very without any higher broadband or bandwidth, the people can also have an access to these notes or video lectures, seminars, etc. The career progress, the online platform helps to strike the right balance between the office, home, and work priorities, as this mode of study can be used anywhere, anytime. In a nutshell, universal access and universal service build knowledge communities by using self-learning, beneficial for upgrading skill and build knowledge. Quality factor included, industry relevant, comprehensive, and creditable for the current scenario. Now, how to promote e-education? We are not going for this right now. Let us proceed to the next, the justification for the development of online education system. First of all, the corporates, the business houses where our students will take part, take their jobs, etc., demands for such kinds of online education system. Next, those who are into this online education system are creating a better impression. The teachers are obliged for answering, responding to the students, a chance to master new educational technologies and join the contemporary trends. Now, finally, if we go for, I'm just giving some ideas of online softwares which will help the teachers, the tools which they can use. For example, you can proceed towards canva.com. You can keep a track of this. Canva.com, Socrative.com, Kahoot, Proposify.com, Talent LMS, Classmarker, Loom, etc. can be used by them for better presentations. There are various online classrooms, nothing to state, you all know regarding these: the Google Classroom, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Cisco WebEx, the Blackboard Collaborate, the Panopto, Top Hat, LearnCube, Tuvoti, then the K12 Online. Do you know the Indian meeting or classroom software being developed very recently? And that is nothing other than Say Namaste. It is now supporting just 50 participants per meeting or screens. Lakhs of Indians are using Say Namaste. Gradually we can use this also. How to choose online classroom platforms or softwares? It is high definition video conferencing. There should be secure live streaming. Server side recording would be there and shall not be recorded by the authority or by the person who is taking the class, because it would increase the memory space of his device. Advanced interactive whiteboard, advanced collaboration and moderation, live screen sharing, polls and surveys, collaborative code editor, easy administration, insights and analytics, API plugins, etc. Just so actually, to deploy the virtual classroom, there are two options. One, which is on-premise, or one is cloud-based. And it is the institutions who would be thinking more about these. These are the difference between the traditional classroom and online classrooms. So you can teach from anywhere. The absenteeism of both the students and the teachers will drop. So it will reduce. It is being found by various researchers that even in rural students, where they have to, in urban area they can travel hardly 13 or 14 kilometers or lesser than that, but in rural area the students are traveling more than 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers to reach a particular college. So there we find often there are absenteeism right from schools to that of college. The dropouts are too much, but it will reduce to a greater extent with the introduction of online classrooms. Now, online educational system have got much of the benefits. We are there to adopt it. And finally, we can say that it is an opportunity in disguise. There will be soon new syllabus fit for the imparting education online. New examination systems would be there. Empowering the teachers should be there. Training and orientation for teachers as well as for the students. Opportunity for many institutions to come up or do better than other prior institutions who were at a higher level. Capacity building and infrastructure, and a multi-pronged strategy is necessary to manage the crisis and build a resilient Indian education system in the long run. So in the way forward, we have options. The options are, there are three options what we could find. One is blend the online and the offline courses. That means the courses would be dealt as such that they will have few classes which would be taken on offline, and most of them would be taken online. Whereas you would find many institutions and universities or autonomous colleges and other colleges may start off their own some pure online courses which will not be restricted to only the certificate or diploma, rather graduation or graduational courses can also be provided. So they would be pure online courses, and there can be, once again, as some of them have opted or shown their eagerness for once again going back to traditional form, so there may be some pure offline courses also. But what we see right from this point, that is in this crisis situation or post-COVID crisis situation, that either there would be some pure online courses or blend of online and offline courses. So we can take up the questions.
Thank you, Kosik sir, for your nice presentation. So after this, we will start our question answer session. So first question goes to Dr. Santosh Kumar Dev. Sir, kindly unmute your mic, sir. Santosh sir, kindly unmute your mic.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, you can see the question on your screen, sir. This question to you, sir, by Rupa Yadav. How virtual tourism will make significant contribution in GDP of any country? Will it be as beneficial as physical tourism?
Thank you so much, Yadav. Very nice question. And I'm just going to mention here a specific statistics related to the tourism. In 1950, the time at that time, in a global tourist, that was only 25 million. And 2019, the total number of international tourists is 1.56 billion. So for the time being, there's a 69 years within, the total number of tourists is increasing too much. And if you are just going to consider the European Union and North American countries, the virtual tourism has a very positive impact to the tourism industry. And right now, the COVID-19 and that is an unprecedented hit on tourism. So that's why the virtual tourism is a very popular concept to regain the tourism industry from COVID-19 pandemic. So today's the time the virtual tourism basically related to 3D models and 2D panorama images and hyperlink, and also the image-based model. So everything is related to virtual tourism. But if you just consider the developed countries, and right now the developing countries, even Japan, China, India, and Bangladesh, also they're just right now trying to promote the tourism on virtual basis. And today's the time the virtual tourism definitely enhance the 2.5% international tourists in a global market right now. And I personally believe that in 1950, the tourism world GDP contribution was only 2 billion USD. But right now in 2019, the GDP contribution is 10.3%, and the total figure is 2.9 trillion USD. So there is a huge impact on virtual tourism. So virtual tourism right now enhance the international tourists in a country, that will enhance the total number of percentage of export revenue from the tourist. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, earlier I have sent you a question. I'm not getting that. So can you answer that question, sir? Dev, sir.
Hello.
Dev, sir. Earlier I have sent you a question. I'm not getting that in comment box. So, sir, can you do you have that question, sir?
I think here one more question. One asks that how the tourism may be regained after the COVID-19 impact. So I think every country and also the UNWTO, they provided some strategy to revive the tourism industry again after the COVID-19 pandemic. So here the first one strategy should be today stay at home and travel tomorrow. This is a first one concept, and putting the people first. So every country, they're just given more emphasis on the life of the people. So at that time, we have to be protect ourselves from the COVID-19. After that, how the tourism industry regain. So number one, to regain the tourism industry, every tourism stakeholder, I mean the supplier, they have to be provided the low price tourism packages. So that will stimulate the tourists to revisit the different destination of a country. And the airlines industry, they have to be offered the discounted price to the airlines ticket. And every country, the government, they have to be provided the stimulus package for the tourism industry stakeholder. And the tourism industry stakeholder have to be provided the flexible loan at a low interest rate. I think that will be better for themselves. And virtual tourism, definitely, like I mean, Venice, Italy, Switzerland, and France. Like these, our country and the South Asian countries have to be focused on virtual tourism to revive the tourism industry. And at a time, we have to be focused on demand and supply. I mean, after the COVID-19, the demand of the tourist, it may be changed due to social and others changes. So we have to be focused on the behavioral changes, and we have to be provided the
Yes, I
better
am there.
services, healthy services, and as per the expectation of the tourist, if we are able to provide the ensure the supply, so I think their satisfaction rate will be increased, and within the very short time, I personally believe that domestic tourists will regain very shortly. But in case of the international tourism, we have to be take more time, and we have to be focused on these strategies.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Next question is from Dipankar Datto, sir. To DS, sir, is how is it possible to make such an explanation of lucid way? Don't know. What is the question? Okay, sir.
Hello?
Sir,
What is
can you hear
the
me?
question?
Sir, question is not clear, sir. I'm moving to the next question, sir.
How is it possible to make such an explanation in lucid way? So the answer is thank you. So
Okay, sir, next.
this is not the question associated with COVID-19 and other economic issues. So I must say that thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Next question to Dave, sir. So one more question. Do you have suggestion to affected player of tourism sector that
No.
they have? Dave, sir.
Sure.
Can you?
No, really.
Thank you so much. There is another nice question. I mean, the tourism sector, the stakeholder, how they will sustain in a long run. So definitely, I already talked about to revive the stakeholder to provide it the better services to the tourist, because tourist satisfaction is depends on the supplies. So I mean, demand and supply. There is, if there is any mismatch, we have to be find out these areas, and we have to be focused on the gap on demand and supply. At a time, I already talked about in earlier question to revive the stakeholder of tourism industry. I mean, government, they have to be provided the big amount of stimulus packages, and at a time, the flexible loan is very essential for them to sustain for the long term and to offer the better packages for the tourist.
Thank you very much, sir, for your nice answer. I'm not getting any question regarding B.VOC, sir. Actually, sir has covered all area in very lucid way. So I'm not getting one question from one question. This question is goes to Kaushik Chatterjee. Sir, can you you can see the question in your screen, sir. Mr. Kaushik, sir, that how online education will impact better than traditional education system. I think you have already covered. Kaushik, sir, can you hear me?
Yes.
So can you answer this question, sir?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
we can answer. Mr. Hasibul Rahman, for your question, the answer is of course yes, because we are going to have a blend of both the online and offline. So it is far beyond the traditional education system. As we do hope that in this present scenario, when the technology has got advanced to a greater level, so you are also being facilitated by all those. So education, if we are opting for both online and offline, will give a better result than that of the traditional education system. The result from the viewpoint of the facilitators, result from as well as the institutions. Yes, the next question.
Yeah, next question is to Dr. Devashish Shul. What step business should take to tackle the risk arising out of COVID-19? So one question to you, sir, Devashish sir.
Yes, I have already mentioned. Actually, we are not in a position now. We can't predict what will happen in near future. We can't predict what will be the end point of this era. So that's why we can say that we are not in a position to make the final prescription. Just I have mentioned the prescription provided by some renowned economics and famous experts in this field. So it is very difficult now to answer the question that how will you tackle. I have already mentioned some issues, some ways, and that can be adopted. One of them is the prescription made by famous economics professor Abhijit Binayak Bandyopadhyay. So this is the answer. So we are not in a position to tackle this situation to suggest the exact measure which will be adopted in order to mitigate the risk associated with the business sector. So it is very difficult now.
So thank you, sir. Next question to you, sir, Dr. Devashish Shul. Another question from my question is that how to maintain economy during COVID-19 crisis? I think you have already answered, sir. So it is a repeat question, sir. How to maintain economy? How to maintain economy during COVID-19 crisis?
Yes, I have already mentioned in my lecture that how to maintain economy. Yes. So obviously, the one thing is very important here that the due to this COVID-19 outbreak and subsequent lockdown, one thing is very important here. There has been a drastic fall in demand. So demand should be increased. Demand should be enhanced. So personal consumption expenditure has reduced drastically. So it is to be properly addressed. So how to improve the personal consumption expenditure, and if it happens, that means if it is possible to enhance the personal consumption expenditure, then only we can say that the Indian business sector will be revived and Indian economy will be revived. So it is necessary now.
Thank you, sir. Next question to Dev, sir. What are the initial challenges for government to start virtual tourism? So can you explain, sir? Yes, sir. Can you unmute your mic? Sir, Dev, sir, kindly unmute your mic.
Thank you so much, Yadav. Very nice question from the audience. So definitely in case of the virtual tourism development in a country, it depends on technological development. So I personally believe that right now in today in South Asian countries and developed and others developing countries, also they are focused on technological development. Today is the time by using the benefit of the technology. I already talked about in case of virtual tourism, that is related to 3D images and 2D panorama images and image-based model, 3D-based model, video and audio, to design the different types of video in a particular destination. It related to archaeological destination or man-made tourism, or it's maybe natural tourism. Suppose if you are just make a very beautiful promo for the Sundarban, and after that we are just promoted this promo by using different type of social media. And I personally believe that from different countries, I mean international tourists, they will be attracted to visit like Bangladesh and India. Sundarban is such a destination which is covered the two countries, Bangladesh and India. If we had just considered the another beautiful example or fantastic example to the virtual tourism, you know, the Vatican City that is in Italy. So they design a very fantastic promo for the Vatican City from Bangladesh. I mean, developing countries and others countries people, they also feel the interest to visit Vatican City. And also the another fantastic promo design by the Venice. Definitely most of the people from the world they want to visit the Venice. So in case of the Italy, where the majority of the income come from the tourism sector, and their main strategy to attract the tourists. If you just consider, I mean, museum, there is the Eiffel Tower. They make the different type of promo by Paris, France, and they're just going to motivate and sponsor such a video by using the different type of social media, which also encourage the international tourists to visit. So I personally believe that after COVID-19 pandemic, to revive the tourism sector, we have to be focused on virtual tourism fair, and virtual meeting and virtual conferences. So there is a demand of time. Hello, Rakesh.
Hello.
Hello, Sunil.
Yeah, Kaushik sir.
Hello.
Yeah, this question goes to you, sir. You can see the question on the screen, sir.
Hello.
Sir, can you hear me? Kaushik sir.
Hello,
Can I
Sunil.
answer the question of Mr. Madhavama?
Kaushik sir. Can you hear me? I think due to some technical fault, we have lost connection. So with this, we are going to conclude our webinar. Now we have with us Dr. Shiv Shankar Jana, our collaborating college. In collaboration with BELDA College, we have organized this webinar. So now I request Dr. Shiv Shankar Jana to please give with a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Sunil. Am I audible, Sunil?
Yeah.
Dr. Sunil, am I audible?
Yeah.
A very good afternoon to all of you on this webinar platform entitled Survival Strategies for COVID-19 Crisis in India in respect of economy, finance, and education. It is a privilege for me to have an opportunity to deliver formal vote of thanks for the completion of first day session of the webinar organized by EGRA S.S.B College in collaboration with BELDA College. So first of all, on behalf of the organizing committee, I extend my heartiest thanks to our high-profile galaxy of resource persons from India and outside for sharing their time and obviously sharing their views how to survive economy in this new normal situation across the field of economy, finance, and education. So in particular, in the first part of this session, Dr. Dev has discussed about the importance of tourism on economy with a lot of information and show how this pandemic situation badly impacted the economy by in respect of unemployment. And he also mentioned some policy suggestion from get rid out of the situation, like virtual tourism and so on. In the second part of the session, Professor Sur sir has been delivered a clear projection on prevailing situation of Indian economy with various facts and figures, and discuss the present trend of risk in Indian businesses. And sir also suggests some revival strategy for Indian businesses also. In the last part of the session, Professor Chatterjee had took an introduction session on the new normal situation, and he also been addressed on the changing scenario of education, present and future. So please, sir, accept our sincere gratitude and appreciation for coming with such an valuable and useful ideas. Once again, I thank one and all of the screen. Thank you. Stay home and be safe. Now I request my beloved friend, Dr. Sunil, to take over the session. Again, thank you. Sunil? Hello, Sunil?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Jana.
Sunil?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, on behalf of...
Am I audible, Sunil?
Yeah. You can hear me. So on behalf of EGRA S.S.B College and our collaborating college, that is BELDA College, I would like to thank all of you for being with us, sharing your valuable ideas, your valuable time with us. So, sir, my sincere thanks goes to Dr. Santosh Kumar Dev, Dr. Devashish Shur, Mr. Kaushik Chatterjee, and all the audience who made this event a grand success. I'm very glad to inform all of you that more than 1,200 participants has registered for this seminar just because of all of you, sir. Our resource person, just after seeing the pictures of our resource person, they get motivated, and actually we got a huge number of participants from India and abroad. Just because of them, sir, we got more than 100 participants from Bangladesh, and our next day speaker, Arindam Babu, we got more than 150 participants from Bhutan. And just because of our teachers, DR sir, JS sir, DS sir, we got thousands of participants. So thank you, sir. With this, I'm concluding today's session, and I invite all of you, participants, especially invite all of you to join tomorrow with our other resource person. We will start tomorrow at 11, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, Shunil Yadov and Shiv Shankar Professor Shiv Shankar, to invite me up to today's session. And I want to give the special thanks to renowned Professor of India, Professor Dr. Devashish Shur. Really amazing speech of today. I enjoy his speech, and Professor Kaushik also. And thank you so much, everyone. Wish all of you good health, and I personally request all of you stay at home and travel tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaskar.